In 1482, the Granada War began when Castile attacked Alhama, a cliff town near Granada, proving Christian armies could seize strongholds, hold them, and force Nasrid leaders into costly counterattacks and panic across the frontier. Granada's ruler, Abu al-Hassan Ali, called Muli Hassan, answered with raids, but every march burned money, horses, and grain, while Castilian forts tightened around the Vega, choking movement, trade, and confidence inside Granada all season. Inside the Alhambra, Muli Hassan faced rebellion because nobles blamed defeats on his harsh taxes and on favoritism toward a new wife, so palace factions fought each other while enemy scouts mapped roads and wells. This is History and Society, where we explain how power, belief, and pressure shape civilizations over time. Boabdil, Muli Hassan's son, tried to seize power in 1483, but his gamble ended at Lucena, where Castilian troops captured him alive, turning a prince into a hostage for Ferdinand and Isabella in hard silence. Ferdinand and Isabella treated Boabdil's captivity like a lever, releasing him on terms that split Granada, because Boabdil returned as a rival claimant, promising cooperation to Castile while undermining his own relatives in hard silence. The Nasrid Civil War created three power centers: Boabdil in the east, Muli Hassan's loyalists in Granada, and the commander Al-Zagal in the mountains, each demanding taxes and soldiers from towns already starving in hard silence. In 1485, Castile advanced by taking Ronda and nearby passes, cutting Granada's western routes, while new cannon teams and disciplined infantry showed that sieges could be planned, supplied, and repeated without collapse in hard silence. Loja fell after repeated pressure, and its loss opened the road toward the capital, exposing farms, canals, and mills, so every harvest around Granada became a battlefield, fought with raids and escorts in hard silence. In 1487, Malaga became a turning point because Ferdinand and Isabella surrounded the port, blocked resupply by sea, pounded walls with cannon, and forced a harsh surrender that terrified other cities in hard silence. Malaga's fall stripped Granada of a major outlet for trade and aid, and confiscated wealth helped fund more armies. So conquest started paying for itself through captured stores, land, and prisoners in hard silence. Mountain fortresses still resisted, but each stronghold depended on nearby fields, and Castilian columns seized grain, herds, and water sources methodically, leaving garrisons hungry, isolated, and unable to raid in hard silence. In 1489, the siege of Baza proved the new method because Ferdinand camped for months, kept supply roads open, rotated troops, and waited until hunger broke resistance inside the walls at last in hard silence. When Baza surrendered, nearby towns surrendered quickly, calculating that negotiated terms were safer than starvation, and this chain reaction collapsed Granada's depth, shrinking Nasrid territory into a thin, nervous core in hard silence. Al-Zagal, once the strongest commander, lost legitimacy as cities defected, and his talks with Castile weakened him further, because rivals framed compromise as betrayal of Islam, honor, and family duty in hard silence. Boabdil exploited that anger, presenting himself as the only possible savior of Granada, yet his position depended on Castilian favor, trapping him between public expectations inside the city and demands from camp in hard silence. By 1490, Castilian forces built roads, magazines, and permanent camps near Granada, allowing year-round pressure, while Nasrid raids achieved little beyond burning villages and provoking tighter blockades and reprisals in hard silence. The Vega countryside emptied as peasants fled, because soldiers seized grain and livestock, and irrigation channels were damaged, so Granada's markets faced shortages that turned daily life into bargaining and panic in hard silence. Ferdinand and Isabella demanded total submission, but they preferred a living city, so they tightened the noose slowly, offering surrender terms to merchants and elders who feared massacre, ruin, and total exile in hard silence. In 1491, Castile built Santa Fe, a planned military town outside Granada, signaling permanence and discipline, and its straight streets and fresh walls told defenders the siege would not lift soon in hard silence. Granada's walls were strong, but morale was weaker, because factions blamed each other for hunger, and Boabdil faced pressure from commanders who wanted desperate sorties, even if those attacks only wasted lives in hard silence. Boabdil opened secret talks, hoping to preserve lives and property, while Ferdinand demanded keys, hostages, and public submission, ensuring surrender would look like a lawful transfer of sovereignty to the crowns in hard silence. The Treaty of Granada, drafted in late 1491, promised Muslims freedom of worship, courts, property, and language, and it allowed emigration, trying to turn conquest into orderly administration instead of slaughter and hard silence. On 2nd January 1492, Boabdil handed Granada to Ferdinand and Isabella, and Christian banners rose over the Alhambra, ending the Nasrid kingdom and completing the long Reconquista campaign across Iberia in hard silence. The first months after surrender focused on control, with garrisons, inspections, and new officials, but many Muslims trusted the treaty, because mosques remained open and markets still operated under familiar rules in hard silence. Yet royal advisors wanted religious unity, arguing that mixed belief invited rebellion, so pressure grew through church preaching, legal changes, and incentives for converts, slowly narrowing the treaty's protections in hard silence. In 1499, Cardinal Cisneros pushed aggressive conversions in Granada, breaking earlier restraint, and arrests and forced baptisms sparked riots, proving treaty promises could be rewritten once the victors felt secure in hard silence. The first Alpujarras revolt erupted as mountain villages resisted conversion, and Castilian troops suppressed it with sieges and reprisals. Then authorities imposed harsher terms that stripped Muslims of remaining safeguards in hard silence. By 1502, Castile ordered Muslims to convert or leave, turning faith into legal status, and many accepted baptism outwardly to keep homes, beginning the uneasy Morisco era under suspicion and surveillance in hard silence. Moriscos kept some customs quietly, but officials demanded new names, banned Arabic, and enforced church rituals, so homes became places of fear where neighbors could accuse neighbors for profit or piety in hard silence. Economic motives mixed with religion because confiscations, fines, and forced sales transferred orchards and workshops to new owners, rewarding conquerors and weakening old families that might organize resistance later in hard silence. In 1568, a second Alpujarras revolt rose under Philip II, after tighter bans on dress and language and brutal fighting followed, with villages burned and survivors relocated under armed guard in hard silence. After suppression, the crown dispersed Moriscos across Castile, hoping distance would break community bonds, yet mistrust remained, and officials continued treating Moriscos as an internal enemy within the realm in hard silence. In 1609, Philip III ordered Morisco expulsion, pushing families onto ships and roads, and ending the last large Muslim-descended communities that had survived since Granada's surrender more than a century earlier in hard silence. The War of Granada showed a new state style where crowns used cannon, logistics, and bureaucracy together, creating pressure that outlasted battles and turned captured territory into controlled subjects and taxpayers in hard silence. It also proved how civil war destroys defenses, because Nasrid rivals fought for the throne while Castile captured towns, showing that unity can be more valuable than any fortress, wall, or mountain pass in hard silence. For Andalusi Muslims, collapse meant losing courts, armies, and political voice, then losing language and faith protections, showing how conquest moves from territory to identity over generations of tightening rules and hard silence. For the Spanish crowns, victory reinforced the belief that authority required uniform religion, linking monarchy to church power, and treating difference as a security risk rather than a normal condition of life in hard silence. The conquest left vivid scenes, Alhambra halls, Santa Fe camps, Malaga's starving port, and Baza's empty streets, because this war was lived through hunger, fear, negotiation, and slow, irreversible surrender in hard silence. The key moment was not one battle, but the closing of options. As ports fell, fields were seized, and alliances broke, leaving surrender as the only way to keep families alive inside walls in hard silence. Boabdil became tragic because he chose survival over martyrdom, yet his choices were shaped by trapped circumstances, where every alternative ended in slaughter, fire, or the total destruction of Granada itself in hard silence. Ferdinand and Isabella appeared merciful at surrender, but mercy depended on obedience, and once resistance ended, policy hardened, proving treaties can serve conquest first and justice second in practice in hard silence. Each stage left a trail, captured forts, redistributed estates, renamed streets, and converted mosques, showing how states rewrite landscapes so old identities become harder to defend or publicly recover in hard silence. By the early 1500s, Granada's Muslim elites were gone or converted, and new courts controlled taxes and law, so memory became dangerous, something whispered inside houses, not declared in public squares in hard silence. Granada's fall closed the last political door for Islam in Iberia, but it opened a long era of surveillance, forced conformity, and expulsions, driven by fear of difference and fear of revolt in hard silence. That is why the ending kept repeating, because surrender ended the kingdom in 1492, but policies kept erasing the people year after year, until almost nothing remained to resist or return in hard silence. From Alhama in 1482 to expulsion in 1609, the pattern repeats: pressure, division, siege, surrender, conversion, and removal, showing how a state can dismantle a civilization through staged steps in hard silence. Granada is remembered as keys and banners, but the deeper reality was administrative conquest, where paperwork, courts, priests, and soldiers slowly replaced one public life with another across generations in hard silence. During the siege, balls smashed towers and defenders patched breaches with timber and earth, while women carried water jars and bread through alleys, showing a city fighting with labor, not glory, each day under smoke. After surrender, Castilian officials inventoried houses, weapons, and horses, and they registered neighborhoods street by street. So control became visible in ledgers, seals, parish lists, and guards posted at gates from dawn until nightfall daily. By 1516, the crown inherited a united realm across Iberia, and Granada's fall stood as the final seal, proving that patient siege, paperwork, and forced faith could remake borders and people together for generations long. Like the video, subscribe to History and Society, and share this story if you think others should understand how Granada really fell.